So, welcome back to the show, ladies. Today, we have a very, very special guest with us, Laura. She is a podcaster, speaker, author, and coach dedicated to empowering women in midlife who are healing from a narcissistic relationship. Sorry, I messed that up. Who are healing from a relationship with a nice guy through her global podcast, That's Where I'm At, and her best selling book, Married to a Nice Guy, Getting Over Narcissistic Abuse. Laura shares her personal journey of recovery from a 32-year marriage to a narcissist. Laura's mission is simple: to shine a light on narcissistic abuse and let women know they are never alone and that healing is always possible. So, without any further ado, welcome to the show, Laura.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And the first question I have for you, since like you were married to a narcissist for 32 years,
Yeah.
how did you know it wasn't too late to start over?
Well, I feel like I had this fire in me after I got out to be like, he's like taken so much of my life. I have to keep moving forward.
Mhm.
And so at first I didn't know it was narcissistic abuse because, we're so brainwashed, right? We're so brainwashed and everything. I really didn't know. And so when I left my marriage, I was like, oh my God, I have freedom. And so I'm just going to start going. I already had a lot of drive. But if you've ever been with anyone who's abusive, they don't let you do anything. You cannot have joy. You
Mhm.
can't have any drive. You can't have any motivation. Then, of course, they tell you you're the most boring person. And why don't you have any goals in your life and stuff? And it's like, okay, but literally, if I have a goal, you beat me down from that. And and so that I just was like, I can't stop. And so I also had a lot of really great women around me who were even older than me who were like, you're not done. Like if you're alive, if you so I always say if you're not dead, you're not done. And
Yeah,
that's just how I felt.
I love it.
We're not done. And listen, I'm in my 50s, and when you get to this age, we don't give two shits about anything. So like just that's why I'm like the women who come to me and they're in midlife and they're like, I feel like it's over. I'm like, oh my God, you're just getting started. Like, let's go.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. There's so many women that need to hear from you just because I feel like they think it's like too late to start over.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love
I
that.
mean, you feel, I mean, I really felt like, yes, he did take a lot of years from me. I'm still grieving that. I wish I was a softer mom. I was a really rough, yelly, screamy, abusive mom. I've had a lot of healing with my kids. I'm a different grandma. I'm a much softer grandma. She can do no wrong, my little granddaughter.
Mhm.
But, I just want to make up time for that. And thank God for therapy. Thank God for my kids going to therapy and my kids and I having a lot of healing. So now I can enjoy the rest of my life with them. And do I grieve that part of me? Yes, I grieve that part that the person I was in survival mode, what he was doing to me. But now you have a do over, and that's what I'm doing it as.
I love that. By the way, you do not look like you were 50 years old. You look like
I'm
super young.
actually,
So
we'll be 59 in a couple weeks. So,
what?
yeah,
That is amazing. Well, happy birthday.
thank you.
That's amazing. So if you don't mind, give us like a little like back history on
Yeah.
what was it like when you guys first met? How did you guys meet? And just take it away.
Yeah.
I'm here to listen.
Yeah. Yeah. So we met in college. So I was actually with my high school boyfriend. We went to college together. And then my ex, is a year younger. So then he showed up at college and then he started dating somebody. We all met in a class and we all used to hang out together.
Mhm.
These 18 and 19-year-olds, we were so young and didn't have any brains. And so we enjoyed each other's company. We all hung out together, whatever. And then at some point, I broke up with my high school boyfriend. It just didn't work out. And then he broke up with his girlfriend, not because of anything with me, though. Now, when I think back, he was grooming me just like he groomed his current wife. There's this process of like they always have to have supply. They have to get the next supply ready. Look, they are like a battery or something and they always have to be getting charged. And so now in hindsight, look, I didn't see any of this at the beginning. So in hindsight, I can see that he groomed me because I loved being with him even as a friend. I just loved it. And so when he broke up with his girlfriend, um like we just started dating. He was like, "Oh, maybe we should start dating. We're already friends." And
Mhm.
I was like, "Yeah, maybe we should." And that was it. And I actually have spoken to his previous ex, who was actually his fiance. They dated for a couple of years. We were all friends in college. I've actually talked to her because I liked her as a friend. And I said, was there any overlap? Was I that girl? Whatever. And she's like, no, there wasn't. And so we've had those discussions. She was bamboozled like I was. And now his current partner, she doesn't know it yet, but she's bamboozled, and that's just the way they are. So
Mhm.
anyway, that's the beginning. So I never saw any of that. Laura had a deep need to be loved and wanted, and he had the same goals and hopes and dreams that I did.
Mhm.
But they always do. They always because they mirror you, right? So really you're falling in love with yourself, which is it's heartbreaking, but they're marrying you. And as I started to meet his family and stuff, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like the best family. My family's so toxic and their family's so great.
Mhm.
Oh God, no.
Right.
Before I got to see behind the curtain
Mhm.
and really get to know them, I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. So we got married really fast, we got engaged really fast, all that. And one of the reasons he said was, well, we've already been friends. So we don't have to like have a long engagement or anything. Let's just get married. And I was like, yay, somebody loves me because I had a deep need to be loved.
Right.
And then we just, so those are like the beginnings of the red flag. You do not need to rush. You don't need to move so quickly. You don't need to let somebody, like, your identity doesn't have to be based on how much somebody loves you and stuff. And that's not anything I really learned, and that's not anything I wanted to do. I wanted the attention
Mhm.
of a boy, really. He's a boy, to love me, and then I would feel whole and better. And so
Mhm.
that's just really the beginnings of everything.
Right. Yeah. That's totally relatable. I feel like they always make themselves out to be like everything we've always dreamed of. And then did you
Yeah.
feel like when did you start noticing like the red flags? Was it years or early on?
As I look back, I see it's those subtle red flags, right? It's that kind of thing. So you don't realize that rushing to the altar and those kinds of things and rushing to say, I love you. Like, I mean, we slept together right away and stuff like that. So of course, all the chemicals are going through my brain. I made no good decisions after that, which is like morality aside, like, don't even decide that way. Like, literally, you're going to make bad decisions because the chemicals in your brain are going to be speaking for you.
Yeah.
And so that was hard. And as we started to, we lived our life and all that, I don't know that I saw any red flags because there were so many green ones,
Mhm.
right? I have to say, some of the things that were going on were very similar to my childhood.
Mhm.
And so they all looked normal and it was the way it was. And my dad loved my mom. And so when there were backhanded compliments or that you're crazy, things like that, well, that's what I heard growing up. So why would I think anything else? And okay, so I always believe that if someone told you that you had an issue, like you're too difficult or you're too loud or whatever it is, then that was something you needed to work on because this person loves you.
Mhm.
And so I didn't know any better. I didn't know that I could say like, "Well, no, I have introspection. I don't think I'm that way," but I didn't have introspection. I lived off of external validation. And so anything that we think about now that's a red flag, like backhanded compliments, flirting with other women, things like this, that I would say, can you not do that? He'd be like, oh, sure. Yeah, I'll stop. But then they would do it again. And that's just constantly crossing your boundaries. And
Mhm.
so those are the things that I dealt with. And then I lived off of hope and breadcrumbs because that intermittent reinforcement is part of the trauma bond. And it's like he would do things I didn't like. I'd ask him to stop so he would be better, quote unquote better. And then like, do those nice things. Maybe he'd give you the compliment. Maybe he'd do the things you like. Maybe he'd buy you the flowers you like, all those things. And so then you get that dopamine hit, right? Of it's like a slot machine. You get that intermittent reinforcement, and then there's intermittent abuse. And
Mhm.
so you hold on to hope. You're trying to get back to the beginning. It's like, I know he can do it because I've seen it.
Yeah.
But listen, when you're living off of breadcrumbs, you'll starve to death.
Exactly. I totally relate to that for sure. Did you guys ever try to like make things work to where like you thought that he changed?
Sure. Lots of times.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I was in a lot of therapy a lot of years for
Mhm.
dealing with a lot of stuff. And sometimes he would be like, you should probably go to therapy. You have some childhood issues you should work on. Deflect much. So they're always like, you're the problem. And I heard that our entire marriage. You are the problem. I was actively being told I was not a good mom, all those things. So I was in therapy a lot of times. And then every once in a while, she'd be like, well, do you like, what does he say? What do you know, like that kind of thing. Or we'd be at home trying to have a discussion, which I didn't know I had a narcissist. So, when you're with a narcissist, they're doing the word salad, which is just talking in circles. You have no idea what you're talking about. Everything became my fault, right? Which is Darvo, which is they turn it around onto you. Okay. They reverse the victim and offender. And so everything was my fault. So I'm like, I don't understand why can't I learn how to communicate with my husband? And
Mhm.
so I would go to therapy, and then every once in a while we'd go to marriage counseling. We did marriage, like retreats and whatever conferences. It didn't matter when you're dealing with someone who is actively not wanting to fix themselves. And listen, at some point he did say, I have nothing to work on. I like who I am, and if you have a problem, you should go to therapy.
Oh,
Well, that last round of therapy got me out because I was starting to be like, fuck this shit. Like, I hope I can cuss on your show, but
no, you're good.
fuck this,
You're good.
like, fuck this shit, because nothing was changing and it was always my fault. And I was starting to wake up. And I think that's why the last few years of our marriage, he was starting to what I'm seeing as the discard, because I was starting to wake up and I was starting to set boundaries, and they don't like that. They need someone who will just always follow along and go by the rules. And if you don't want to go by the rules, they can just replace you.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yep.
I was just asking that because with my ex, he
Yeah.
I stayed way longer than what I should have. I feel like we all always do.
Yes.
We're holding on to like that hope. And
Yeah.
I went back a second time because I really did think that he changed. And he was
Yeah.
in therapy and stuff like that. And then the mask just slowly I just
Yeah. It
felt like
doesn't last long, right? How long was it before you started to see it?
3 weeks.
Yeah. So it's so funny. It's so common. So I was listening to this Christian podcaster, and she's a speaker and everything. And I just enjoyed hearing her story. I enjoy hearing people who I followed, like really, I used to be very involved in church,
Mhm.
and I'm no longer, but listen to this speaker who gave her husband multiple chances, and they had a public, like a public whole thing, like I've forgiven him and this, that. Well, he couldn't keep his pants on. So
Wow.
she went to therapy. I'm almost sure this is her story. She went to therapy and she said, I'm going to give him one more chance and I'll be back, and I'm going to give him 6 months. And her therapist said, you won't need 6 months. Guaranteed you won't need 6 months. He'll show you who he is before 6 months is up.
Mhm.
Yeah, it didn't last long. She was filing for a divorce within a couple of months
Yeah.
because he didn't change. This is the thing. When we give them one chance, they're going to take it.
Right.
And they're going to say, oh, you gave me an inch. I'm going to take the mile, because I don't know how many times I gave him chances with other women.
Mhm.
And I just kept giving him chance after chance because I thought if I would just explain myself better, he would understand.
Mhm.
No, he understood. He just wasn't going to change. He
Exactly.
wasn't going to.
That is the freaking hard part, I feel like, too, for so many women to just accept the fact that, like,
Yeah.
that is our reality. Or, like, that was,
Yeah.
I feel like were you in denial
Oh
for,
my God. So, I didn't really know that because I grew up, I'm Gen X, if you weren't being hit, you weren't in abuse. So that's not how I was taught. And also his parents and my parents were together forever. His parents are still together. And my parents were together 60 years. So it's like, what modeling did I have? I didn't have women who were just like going, fuck this, and walking out. You know what I mean? I didn't have those conversations around me. Now I have those conversations now, with my kids, and even other. I have no patience for women who are like, I don't know what to do. Oh my God, you should have left already. Like,
right?
I feel so bad, but I
Yeah.
have no patience for it because now I can see it. And I am like straightforward about it now. Like, they won't change. And that's the hard part because we live off of hope because we know that they can be a certain way. And also, this is like something I think that I've heard other women say. They really are scared. What if their partner is better for the next one?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what they're scared of. And frankly, I was scared that if I wasn't better, look, whatever that meant, but listen, like I'll have more sex with you. I'll do whatever, you know what I mean? And just because I didn't want him to leave me for her, because there was another woman all the time, the one he's married to now. And that's what he did. So what does it matter? Like it doesn't matter. Like the minute they're done using you as a toy, they are done and you're going to be replaced. And I hate to be so blunt, but let me tell you, you got to rip the band-aid off.
Yeah.
They do not care. And so that has nothing to do with us,
Hmm.
because I felt like garbage. I'm like, how do you throw away 33 years of me? Like, how do you just like throw it away?
Yeah.
They just can, because they're heartless and they're soulless and they don't care. They don't care. And it's heartbreaking. That doesn't mean that you are a terrible person, because I know what a great person I am. I know who I am. I walked out of my marriage with integrity.
Absolutely.
Even if you walk out of your marriage and you didn't have integrity, I don't care about that. I feel like sometimes we do things that are desperate.
Hmm.
And some people end up going like, I'm just going to have an affair because he is. Go ahead. You know what I mean? Well, no, not go ahead. I mean, you know what I mean? Well, you know what I mean. You
I know
listen,
what you mean.
sometimes you got to be like that. Sometimes you feel desperate and you want to be like, forget all of this. I just want the pain to be over. And
Right.
so we make, and listen, I was fantasizing about not being alive anymore.
Right.
That's sad. Rather than getting a divorce, like that's sad, but it's very common.
That is very, very sad. Yeah. I'm like, I talk about that a lot on my podcast too. Like, no one should ever, if someone genuinely loves you, they're not going to make you feel like you need to kill yourself.
Yeah,
Or just
seriously.
that you don't
Yeah,
want to wake up, maybe not necessarily go and kill yourself, but like you were fine with just like not waking up, dying in your sleep because the pain was so
exactly. That's
real.
exactly it. Yeah, I didn't have a plan, but I just was like, I'd rather just not be alive,
Right.
whatever that means.
Are you comfortable with talking about what happened like in the church? Because didn't you? I think I
Yeah.
saw one of your Instagram reels about how he was in the church, that he served on the serve team and stuff like that.
Yeah, so he was actually in a different church, because in true narcissistic fashion, I became a Christian during our marriage. And so then I was talking to him about Christianity, because that's what we do.
Mhm.
Uh, listen, I am not involved anymore. So, and forgive me for ever doing anything I did. But anyway, so talking to him about being a Christian, he was like, let me do the opposite. So he actually started going to a different church. It's so if I say black, you say white. Like it's amazing to me. So, but he really was able to, yeah, he served the homeless. He was very involved in his church
Mhm.
and all that stuff. So he just looked like the greatest guy.
Mhm.
Everybody just loved him. I'm telling you, not one person who met him didn't like turn to me and say like, your husband is such a nice guy. I just love him.
Right.
Hmm.
I can
Sure.
relate to that 100%.
Yeah.
Whenever was it really difficult for you to go and file for divorce because you didn't think, you were afraid of what people were going to think of you because they thought that you were married to this saint?
Right, exactly. Yeah. Well, you know what? I was kind of over it. And so, like, filing and all that was just like, I was done. So I didn't care anymore. By that time, I actually had left the church, but I was very surprised anyway about how people reacted,
Sure.
saying, just like you gave, well, he was also saying I gave up on the marriage. And some people came out of the woodwork and said, well, my first marriage was abusive, people I knew from the church. So I was like, oh, okay, so we don't talk about this because, God forbid, we don't look perfect and stuff like that. So it was great to hear from other people, but at that point I had been out of the church a few years, and so it didn't matter to me. But I was still following God. So I actually was doing some research because I wanted to offer that to people who were like, I don't think I'm allowed to get divorced. God hates divorce. I'm like, oh my gosh, that scripture is so big. And so I started actually researching and then finding other creators who talk about it. So if you're a Christian and you think God hates divorce and you can't get divorced, I have tons of resources for you,
Yeah.
because he hates abuse worse.
Right.
And so that I still can talk about that. I've talked about that on multiple podcasts about my experience, because I don't think it's right. And also, you can have abusive church systems.
Hmm.
And that was for me, I felt like every system I was in was abusive, and was toxic and narcissistic. And so it was good to get out. I had to get out
Sure.
because it's hard because we don't blame for abuse, but I was the common denominator, but I was like, I was getting something from everything, right? And I'm like, oh, but I have allowed a lot of crap in my life. And
Right.
so I had to get out of all the systems I was in, every single one,
Yeah.
to really make a new start. So I always say I'm only 3.5 years old. No one's ever met this version of me, even me. You never know what I'm going to do.
Right. I love that. That's super powerful, especially like the courage. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm super proud of you. Like the courage that
Thank
it
you.
took to just walk away from that. What did you do? What helped you on your healing journey? Like after the divorce, the everything that happened and the
Yeah.
kids and all that stuff. So what did you do?
A lot of screaming into my pillow, a lot of crying, lots of crying. And then also, so the first 3 months I didn't know I had been in abuse. I
Mm,
still thought I was walking out of my marriage with irreconcilable differences. I thought we just didn't get along. Why did we get divorced? I don't get it. Like, I don't know.
mm,
And so even when I was talking to my kids, they'd be like, "No, mom, you got to just keep moving forward and keep healing." Well, they knew already that he was with the girl,
mm,
the other girl. They knew because I was on full no contact. So my kids were very, some of my friends were like, "They should have told you." I'm like, "No, that they knew not to tell me because I would have had like a full mental breakdown from that, which I basically did." So the first 3 months I like went to the beach. Journaling is imperative to me. Journaling, like get every stupid thought out of your head, like everything that's coming to your brain, and then like really doing the from the negative to the positive, like I'm not garbage. He threw me away like garbage, but I'm not garbage. Those kinds of things.
mhm,
uh Tons of trauma informed therapy. You have to do that. I did a lot of I tried everything because, well, for one thing, I'm very type A. Like I needed my healing to happen immediately. Like
mhm.
what am I waiting, like what are you waiting for? Healing, let's go. you know I'm like, let's get a move on. And no, 3.5 years later, I'm still,
Yeah.
there's still stuff to unpack. There's still stuff to unravel. There's still grieving to do, which I hate that feeling. I hate that he's off on his new life doing whatever he wants, and I'm over here picking up the pieces still. But is my life 99% better? Yes. And that's that 1% I'm still working on, right? There's still stuff that I'm unraveling because also I want to be a better me. So I still do therapy. I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of breath work, stuff like that. Stuff that is really going to help you mind, body, and soul. I did go to a divorce group. If you have any spirituality, go back to your church, go talk to people like that, but don't limit yourself to one thing.
Mhm.
Talk to people, and if they say like, "Oh, I did this, whatever," then go try it. If it's not going to harm you, go check it out, and like take what you want and then leave the rest.
Mhm.
So that's what I did. But journaling and therapy were the two biggest for me to start my journey.
I love that. So tell us about your book. I know that you have a book out.
Yeah.
How long has the book actually been out?
It's been almost 2 years. Yeah. It's Married to a Nice Guy.
Love that.
Nice guy in quotes. So it's actually a collection of my journal entries. It
I love
actually
that.
what I had the idea, and then I worked with a publisher, and she's like, "Yeah, that's a great idea." So because I wanted to show, like, there were some days where I'm like, I feel so good today. Everything's great. And then the next day I was like, fuck him, fuck her, fuck this.
Yeah,
And I wanted to show like that's really the healing journey. I mean,
exactly.
it's
Yeah.
it really is the healing journey. And that doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. So I talked about like what was going on in my head, what happened, sort of going back to the beginning. And then it's not super long, it's not super extensive, but I wanted to get that story out of me.
Mhm.
And I am going to write another one where I will talk about all the systems that I just talked about, getting out of all the systems and how I managed to do that. So I'm going to do that one, but that one's a bigger a bigger book. So I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't know about you, but when I get overwhelmed, I just do nothing. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah. No,
But
I
so
love it.
the book was really healing, to be able to talk about that. And the other fascinating thing was, as you're writing, as you get clarity as you're healing, right? When you're not actively being abused, your brain actually starts to heal. And then I'd be like writing a story and I'd go, "Oh crap, I think that was a lie."
Mm-hmm.
And things would start coming back to me. So things like that still happen, like random things out of nowhere. I'll
Yep.
be like, "Oh, I bet he wasn't even whatever at work or whatever. I bet he was,
Yeah.
yeah, it's crazy. And there's nothing we don't want to do anything with that information. Like I found recently, somebody sent me a screenshot from, I have friends who go poking around the new
Yeah.
wife's Facebook. Like, go ahead. Like, I don't care. They're like, can I send you this screenshot? I'm like, sure. So
Yeah.
they sent me a screenshot and I'm like, this proves that they were together before we were divorced. And I'm like,
Wow.
what am I going to do with that information? Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. I'm just all I can say is I was right. That's all I can say,
Right.
and
Yeah.
that's all I can do. So, and that really helps me to trust my intuition for the next time, because their whole thing is to cause chaos and confusion. So as you're healing, like journal those times where you get clarity,
Hmm.
and those times where you go, oh, I bet that was a lie, or maybe you do catch them in a lie, like that with the I journaled that, even like that only happened a couple months ago. I journaled that because I was like, I knew it, I was right. And that's what you have to start telling your brain,
Exactly.
because you were being gaslit the whole time.
Yeah. That's exactly what you have to do. I absolutely
Yeah.
love that. So, aside from your book,
Yeah.
you have a group. Do you do one-on-one coaching? Like, if there's any
Mhm.
women that can relate to your story,
Yeah.
tell us what else you offer.
Sure. I do have a private group, and it's the Nice Guy Recovery Community, and it's private, it's safe. You can chat with other members, and then you can other survivors. And then we also do live Zooms. I have guest speakers, things like that, and I have tons of resources. And then I do one-on-one coaching for anybody who would like that. I also do DM coaching. If you don't feel like getting on camera or anything like that, you just want to like DM me on Instagram. I actually have coaching for that. You can
Wow.
sign up and then I'll just like talk to you in the DMs, which is fine. I have people who do that. It's just easier, and
Sure.
we can kind of talk anytime. And yeah, and tons of resources on my website. I have journals and I have lots of freebies and stuff like that. So yeah,
Amazing.
and my podcast, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, in conclusion, ladies, we will drop all of her links to her book, her resources, and everything below this podcast episode. So make sure that you go check out her website, her podcast, follow her on Instagram. We'll drop that link down there as well. But Laura, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been phenomenal, and I'm sure that so many women can relate to your story. In conclusion, though, what's one piece of advice that you would give to someone who just feels like they know what they need to do, but they're just not there yet?
Yeah. Well, if you're still in it and you are feeling confused and you feel like you can't get out, that's very much the trauma bond. The trauma bond is our abuser is also our soother. And so we get chemically bonded to them. You have to just be brave and take that first step. You don't know what you don't know on the other side, but you deserve more than what you're going through right now.
Mhm.
I didn't know what was on the other side. I just knew I couldn't do that for the rest of my life.
Sure.
And that's what you have to ask yourself. Like, can you do what you're doing for the rest of your life? I
Right.
bet you can't. There's something better for you on the other side, I promise. And you're worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
110%. I love that. So that concludes this episode, ladies. Once again, Laura, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you ladies on the next episode.